More severe weather will be coming to the United States today and tomorrow, and this is going to pose another threat for damaging winds, large hail, and a couple of tornadoes across a very large chunk of the United States. In addition to this, we're going to be talking more about this brutal weather pattern that's going to be coming to the United States over the next 7 days, which half of the country will be dealing with much cooler weather than usual, and then the other half will be dealing with some record-breaking high temperature potential. So let's jump right into what's happening across the United States this morning. And as of right now, we do have a complex of thunderstorms that's been rumbling across areas like Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma earlier this morning. That did actually end up bringing some significant damaging winds last night to areas like southwest Missouri, just south of Joplin. We had some damaging winds near 80 miles per hour. So that was a pretty big deal. But the good news is that this is beginning to fall apart, and we are going to be done talking about this as we go later into today. Now, back over in the Ohio Valley, we do also have another area of thunderstorms that did fire up yesterday. That's been kind of dying out this morning. One key thing that I do want to point out with this is that we did actually have some rotation just to the west of Chicago yesterday. I don't think we had any confirmed tornadoes, but there was a couple of close attempts where we actually almost went live yesterday due to the proximity of where it was to Chicago. We had a couple little couplets that were trying to develop. Good news was that we just did not have a great environment yesterday for tornadoes. It was not good enough for there to actually be any sort of, major tornado potential. Back over to the north and west of that, we do have a spinning low pressure system that's going to bring another round of severe weather today across parts of the Ohio Valley, and then the northeast and up and down the east coast will be dealing with some more storm activity as we go both into later today and as well as into tomorrow. Now, today might be one of the most wacky days that we've ever seen of severe weather, because we don't just have one or two areas outlined. We have 5 areas outlined today for the potential for severe weather, and they are in the most random places on Earth. Look at this. We have one slight risk and marginal threat in Washington, California, and as well as Oregon today. We have another slight risk over in Utah and even a sliver of Arizona. We have another marginal threat back over in some of the Sandhill region there, back over in the Central Plains. We have another marginal threat back over in northeast Montana and western North Dakota. And then we just have a large blob for a marginal and slight risk for severe weather across the Ohio Valley, the southeast, and back into parts of the northeast. Now, really, the main area that we're going to be talking about in this forecast will be back over here in the Ohio Valley and the northeast, because this is an area that we're going to be dealing with all modes of severe weather. The primary concern in every region today is going to be some damaging winds, which will be relatively scattered, large hail, and then maybe an isolated tornado or two back over in that slight risk. And that'll be mostly for central and eastern Kentucky today, where we could have an isolated tornado or two. So here's your wind risk. Basically goes with all the slight risks that we have. There's no really hail potential back over in Utah or Arizona, but we do have that hail potential elsewhere. The greatest concern, again, just being hail up to the size of golf balls. Most storms will not really produce much hail. Here's your tornado risk for today. And again, it's not a huge area, but there is a small 2% tornado risk across Kentucky and southern Ohio. A little off topic, but I will be golfing today, so I may or may not be able to go live if something does happen. I don't really think we're going to see much today, honestly. Maybe just a brief tornado at like worst case scenario. So that's what we'll probably be looking at there. Just something to stay weather aware of if you're in Kentucky or southern Ohio. Very low risk today. I don't really see today going bonkers. As we go into Sunday, the risk of severe weather will continue. We only have 2 areas that we're watching for on Sunday, at least for now. Another marginal threat back over in parts of the high plains, and then another marginal and slight risk that goes all the way across the east coast and then back over into Oklahoma. The main corridor will be that yellow area. That's your slight risk, and that'll be scattered damaging winds as the main concern. Tornado risk right now is a near zero threat. We don't have any areas outlined for tornadoes on Sunday, but again, a brief spin up cannot be ruled out. Now, today's tornado risk is relatively low. This is what the tornado parameter values look like around 3 o'clock or so this afternoon. Really, again, our greatest concern will be in parts of central and eastern Kentucky, where a brief tornado will be possible, maybe 2. And then as we go later into the afternoon into the evening, the main concern will again just be in this corridor. It'll grow a little bit more in size as we get closer to like 5 to 6 o'clock back from southern Ohio into Kentucky. But again, overall, not really too concerned about today's tornado risk. You might notice there are a few other areas that have some low end values, even as far west as like Kansas, but overall the environment not really that supportive for a tornado risk in those areas with the mode of severe weather that's in the forecast. So this is what this morning looks like. A few storms still out there. Most of these areas of thunderstorm activity will kind of fizzle. Once we get closer to 1 to 2 o'clock, storms will begin to fire up over in central and eastern Kentucky. By about 3 to 4, these storms continue to rumble to the east across mostly just eastern Kentucky, eventually kind of blowing up into Ohio. Main concern again today will be wind, but one of those initial supercells, maybe even one that develops even later in into the afternoon could produce an isolated spin up. But main concern today is damaging winds and hail. Once we go later into the evening, storms start to fall apart after sunset as daylight heating winds down, and then we're done with this as we go into early Sunday morning. More storms will be possible Sunday afternoon across Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania behind that low pressure system, but most of these will just be gusty winds and small hail if there's any severe weather. This is what the rest of the country looks like for today. Storms will fire up around that high pressure system in the Four Corner states later today. Some storms again over in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, and then maybe a couple storms over in Montana or North Dakota. More storms will fire up tomorrow morning across both Kansas and as well as back through Nebraska and South Dakota. Main concern with those will just be wind, and then we'll be watching for more storms to fire up and down the east coast of the United States tomorrow. This is what the future radar looks like in the southeast for tomorrow, and notice again a few complexes of thunderstorms will fire up. Does not look to be much of a tornado risk kind of day. It looks mostly just like Boeing segments with wind and maybe some hail before, as we go later into the evening, things start to taper down. Probably going to be after 8 or 9 till things wind down a bit more. And then back over in the mid-Atlantic region, we are going to be watching for another round of storms to fire up tomorrow. Again, these will be mostly just wind-based across areas like Maryland, Northern Virginia, Pennsylvania, and eventually moving towards Delaware and New Jersey, where they will start to weaken out as they move closer to the coastline. But I do think damaging winds will definitely be a strong possibility across Maryland. Maybe a brief spin up again tomorrow, but it should be a relatively low risk. Now, the weather pattern over the next several days is going to be basically the same almost the entire week. It does not even just the next few days. It's literally for the next 10 days. We're going to be dealing with this ridge back over in the southern plains in the southwest. What this is going to do is leave a bit more of an active weather pattern here in the Pacific Northwest, but it's also going to leave a bit of a cooler weather pattern across parts of the Midwest, the northern plains, and the Northeast, where we will have this little dip in the jet stream. That's going to allow for some cooler weather and a slightly more active weather pattern, at least through the beginning of next week. But after that trough moves out, we're just going to be dealing with this massive ridge that is not going to be anywhere close to moving. It is going to be a very stubborn ridge as we go into the middle and end of the week, and this thing's going to prevent most storm activity. Now, one thing that could happen is that we could get a large trough ejection by the very last week of August that could actually bring some severe weather to the northern plains, maybe Canada. It's uncertain what this will exactly look like, but that could break the ridge, and this could be some sort of severe weather event to watch for in the future. And I'm not just saying that as if it's going to be a marginal day. We could see this as a bit of a larger day, but it depends a lot on what's going to be happening in the future, which again, that is still well over 7 days out from now. So for the next few days, we'll be dealing with an active weather pattern in the northwest and the northeast. Notice showers and storms will continue there, but watch this by Tuesday into Wednesday of next week. We're going to be dealing with a very quiet weather pattern. The only storms that we're looking at and going anytime into really beyond Wednesday or Thursday of next week will be mostly in the northern plains and the Midwest, and even then, these are just some, garden variety type summertime storms. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And then as we go into next weekend, things could get a bit more interesting in the northern plains, but we do not know what's going to happen yet, especially talking about something that's about 8 days out from now. And then for the temperatures, overall, we're going to be seeing a big dip in the temperatures across the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast throughout the beginning and even middle of the week, and it's just going to continue all the way through even next weekend. It's going to be very nice across the East Coast. On the flip side of things, that heat is just going to build across the Great Plains, especially back over in Texas and Oklahoma, where high temperatures could be exceeding 110 degrees in some places. This is what it looks like for today. Wichita Falls, look at that, 108 degrees for today. Tomorrow, we could even take a little step up from that. We could get close to 110 near Wichita Falls, Texas tomorrow, and then eventually into Monday, definitely going to be very close to 110, if not exceeding that. And I don't see this going anywhere anytime soon. So if you're in Texas, just be on the alert. We're going to be very hot there probably for the next several days, if not perhaps for the next week or so. Now, here's the latest update on Hurricane Ernesto, which is currently near Bermuda. It is bringing some major impacts there, like flooding, storm surge, and high winds. It is really not as intense as before, though. It is a Category 1 hurricane. It never got to major hurricane status. It is quickly moving to the north and northeast, where it is expected to make a close appearance to Nova Scotia, but probably won't see many impacts there. This is the latest forecast path from the National Hurricane Center. It will be racing to the north and east, and eventually it'll become a post-tropical cyclone by Tuesday. Notice, though, how far north we're talking about a hurricane. Hurricane Monday evening, that corresponds with where Maine is and even up to northern Michigan. That's not something you see very often at all, and so this is definitely a pretty rare scenario, but overall, this is going to be something that's weakening over the next few days as it does continue to move to the north and east. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.